Mom made me live with her creepy BF who hit on me, used my stepdad's death to steal his money and now wants a relationship just to get my inheritance.
I, F27, have a lot of stories about my mom.
They don't fall neatly into the entitled category, but she is currently trying to leverage my inheritance for a relationship, so it wouldn't be entirely inaccurate. I just find her insane antics to be extremely entertaining, and I hope you will as well. I'm starting with some second-hand info from my brother, since I was a baby super young for most of this part. I have some of my own stories to share next post, but these are some new to me revelations that fit what I know of her character well. My parents divorced when I was a baby. It was around Christmas time. My brother told me that Nikki went crazy and started knocking down all the decorations. He yelled at her, because it was dangerous and I was apparently in the room. He was worried about all the broken glass. Later, he said that he would wait outside for her to pick him up for visitation, but she never showed. She swears up and down that my dad tricked him into thinking it was her weekend when it wasn't, but I don't buy it. Some clear communication would have nipped that right in the bud. Plus, Nikki always seemed to try something with visitation. I didn't have the context to understand why Dad couldn't drive 2 hours to come take me trick-or-treating, but she sure let me wait for him every other year when she knew he couldn't make the trip. There were multiple times that she would plan something fun on his visitation, and then ask me what I'd prefer to do. Anything she could to try turning me against him. At one point we were at a church Christmas party, and my dad came to pick me up for his Christmas year. I was walking around with my friends, and he just showed up. I has absolutely no context for the situation, and excitedly ran up to him just happy to see my dad. He was taking me out the doors when Nikki spotted us and absolutely flipped out. She had me convinced that he was trying to kidnap me. Dad could have obviously handled the situation better, but she always had the superpower of getting under everyone's skin. That includes my stepdad, who admittedly had a drinking problem. When it was just me around him though, he was a happy drunk. Nikki, however, loved to push his buttons. They'd get into huge screaming matches. They both threw/slammed things around. She threw an ashtray at him once and dented our wall. The last straw was when he threw his steel-toed boot at the ground, and it bounced and hit her. Don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning his behavior. I am saying that when Nikki decided to take me to a battered woman's shelter, it was nothing short of emotional blackmail. We were back within the week. Later, she asked 12-year-old me if she should stay with my stepdad. I said that I thought they would make better friends, and they split up. His drinking never improved, unfortunately. There are only 2 times I remember her going crazy on me in that time period. One was when she pushed me into a dog cage. Not literally inside of it. She just shoved me over, and I fell. I still have the scar on the back of my hand from where it caught the corner of the metal. I can't remember what she was on about at the time. It was always something with her. I do remember the other time. I was very young, but it always stuck in my head. We had went into a store, and when we came back to the car, I saw my lip gloss on the ground by my door. I must have dropped it when I got out, so I picked it up. Nikki went off and smacked the crap out of me. She threw me into the car, yelling that I'm not supposed to pick up trash off the ground. I was desperately trying to explain through tears that it was my lip gloss. For those of you who might be wondering, Nikki is a name that I'm using as a jab at her. She always said that she hated that name. Stay tuned for part 2. It gets way better, I promise. Funnily enough, I'm not at all resentful towards her. I had a very interesting childhood with her around. Update 1. Hello again, Reddit. A quick recap, in case you didn't read part 1. I'm pretty sure my mom is bipolar, and she hates the name Nikki. She split with my dad, along with my brother, when I was little. When I was 12, she asked what she should do about my stepdad, and they separated. Never did draw up the divorce papers. Something I didn't mention last time, but my dad had lost visitation rights by now. Between Nikki calling CPS every other week and a few dumb decisions on my part, she had enough to take him back to court. She convinced me to tell them I didn't want to see my dad anymore, which obviously still makes me feel guilty. When we moved out of my stepdad's house, I started to visit there instead. He was my favorite person. I would sit and ask questions as he reloaded ammo, we'd go to the range, watch our favorite shows together, etc. When I started smoking, he found out. I was rolling my own with old tobacco, and he got me a pack so I didn't burn the house down. You might have mixed feelings about that, but you'll get to hear about Nikki finding out next time. Between going there and my extracurricular activities, I was barely at my actual house. Nikki was flipping between overbearing and trying to be my best friend. I never had much respect for her, which you can chalk up to her actions or the fact that I was a teenager. Probably a mix of both. I just found reasons to be gone. Church youth groups, the library, woodcarving class, friends' houses. When I met my boyfriend, I would go straight to his house after school and eat dinner/watch movies with his family. Nikki was gone a lot, too. She had to get a job now that we were alone and went to college for a time. I can't remember what the job was, but I remember she came home late. I once spent a night walking around our small town going to friends' houses and playing Xbox. When I got home, it was around 6 a.m. I started up towards bed when Nikki got back, and I just turned around and went back downstairs. She had been known to start talking to me when I was literally asleep and wake me up, so there was no point in trying. I made a 2-liter of coffee and went back out. This part of my life with her wasn't too bad. Nikki picked stupid things to fight me about, like that time I called the cops when she took $20 I made because I wouldn't do the dishes. Never mind the fact that I made that money selling hydros to my brother. He'd moved into the duplex next to us at one point, and that became my hangout place. Most of the time though, Nikki was trying to be the cool mom. She was very anti-establishment and would back me up anytime I had issues at school. This was also the point she became Wiccan and went off the deep end about mercury and vaccines, baby stem cells in our food, and chemtrails. How the government was brainwashing the youth into being mindless zombies and how I needed to think for myself. Most of it was just cringe. One night, when Nikki got smashed, I suggested she join me walking around town at night. She proceeded to invite my boyfriend by going to his house and throwing rocks at his window. He didn't come down, but we continued to the park. She was so loud and fell down every time I let go of her hand. My now husband and I still joke about it since he missed out. Before freshman year, we moved to a bigger college town. I still visited my stepdad, and I found an MMA gym to hang out at after school. They didn't start class until 6 p.m., so I hung out with the computer club until then. By sheer luck, my boyfriend's family also moved there, so I was still barely home. Nikki started having issues with me being gone all the time, which was fair, to be honest. She didn't care before that point, so I chalked it up to her finding more reasons to start fights. It didn't stop me from telling her that I was going to school on holiday weekends or just skipping entirely. Once, I walked across town because I forgot there were no buses running. It was one of the fireworks holidays. I called my boyfriend, and it turned out his family was going to a lake out of town to go boat/jet ski. They came and picked me up so I could come. Towards the end of the trip, I started getting super paranoid that Nikki would be getting off work and expect me home from school. I wish I had just stayed and enjoyed it because she didn't really care when I got home and told her. She was never consistent with me. I eventually learned how to use that to my advantage. Really, I was not a good kid. What do you expect from a 15-year-old with no respect for their parent and barely any supervision? Nikki told my school that I wasn't allowed to date black people, so I laughed at her for asking me for life advice as my black friend hid under the laundry in my room. I was downright spiteful. Enough time had passed that I saw her custody battle with Dad for what it was. I still believed that my stepdad was better without her, but it was clear that he was devastated. She had taught me to think for myself, alright. I thought she was the trashiest person I had ever met. One New Year she had gone out, and so I had some friends over to drink and smoke. When she got home, she had a guy with her. She proceeded to go into my room and lay in bed absolutely smashed. I tried to get her up and out, but she wouldn't budge. She just kept telling me that she needed to lay down for a minute. I left, but the dude she brought with her went in and closed the door. I am not even going to comment on the shady consent related to that statement. My boyfriend and I got her back for sleeping with someone in my bed, though. If you thought any of this was hilariously insane, just wait until the next one. It gets so much better, or worse, depending on your perspective. Seriously, take all of this craziness and multiply it by 10. I know I didn't go into much about Nikki herself because I really wasn't around her much. There are plenty of details I didn't get into, if anyone is interested in asking. I just didn't want this to turn into my life story, lols. Update 2, sorry this has taken so long. I honestly kind of forgot I was doing this. Recently, I've been dedicating more energy into my writing, and spotted it in my post history. Well, if there are still people who are interested, I'll get on with it. Last we left off, I had moved to the city with my mom, referred to as Nikki for ironic reasons. She had split with my stepdad, who I would visit often back in my hometown. And things were getting tense between her and I, especially after she started dating. Let's call him Richard. He was the type of guy that said things like, "You would make a better girlfriend than your mom," and offered me a ride on his motorcycle. Once, he left Nikki at some college bar across the river, coming back to his apartment drunk. I didn't actually know where she was, since I couldn't get a hold of her, but I didn't feel comfortable alone with him. About the time Richard started to playfully push me down was when I texted my boyfriend to come and get me. When he confirmed that he was there, I made an excuse to leave the room, and bolted. As soon as I got in the car, I looked at my boyfriend's, very Christian, mom and told her to, "Get me the fuck out of here." We were on our way back to Nikki's, so I could get stuff for school in the morning, when I finally heard from her. It was so embarrassing, having to go pick her up. I had more problems with Richard, of course. Especially after his son developed a crush on me as well. Now Nikki herself was another issue entirely. She once came back from the bar to yell at me about not doing the laundry. I got pretty spiteful, waiting until the load in the washer was ready to switch over before I came back to the house. By that time, she had called the police to report me as a runaway. I actually requested for them to keep me overnight, but they don't get paid enough to deal with family squabbles. They did however use a breathalyzer on Nikki when she came to pick me up. The knowledge that she had to leave her car there for the night was a small victory. I was so glad to have visits with my stepdad. He drank a lot with Nikki gone, but he was a happy drunk without her antagonizing him. This was also around the time that K2 was super big. Since they kept changing the formula to get around production laws, he would buy the chemicals online to mix with paint thinner and make his own. That shit was scary. I stopped dealing after an incident at school, where a kid got wheeled out on a stretcher. Maybe that's what did it, maybe the drinking. My brother and I have even wondered if Nikki would want to stop the divorce that badly. She did mention his pension not that long ago. Whatever the case, I didn't know that he wasn't sleeping the next time I got dropped off for a visit. He worked second shift, so it was typical for him to be in bed until 6 some nights. I waited until then to check on him, but I knew something was wrong before then. Can you believe that I called Nikki before the cops? For some reason, I was worried that they would find the stuff he used to make spice. They did ask a bunch of medical questions I couldn't answer, like what medications Dad might be taking. Thankfully, my grandpa had shown up by then. I helped him gather the guns to take with him, which seemed sensible. I still wonder if I should have told him about the Glock in the glove compartment, or just taken it for myself. After all, I never saw anything from that house again. After a few hours, my mom still wasn't there. My boyfriend's grandparents still lived close, so I went to wait there. I can't remember what her excuse was. Nikki claims that Grandpa took everything, while my brother is pretty sure Richard and her pawned all the reloading and machinist tools. Death and greed, am I right? She picked the dumbest songs for the funeral, and even wanted me to sing. I couldn't bring myself to. The man in the coffin looked too gone to be my dad. I flinched as they did the 21-gun salute. And things just went downhill from there. I started talking to my actual dad again, and I was barely in school. Though Nikki wanted to pretend to be responsible all of a sudden, I learned that being reported as late and or absent to one or more classes was easy to explain away. Some days, it seemed like the only way I could do anything. Others, she was back to being chill. Next time, I'll get into what happened once we moved in with Richard. Until then, and hopefully not too long of a wait this time. Update 3, alright Reddit, grand finale for you. If you haven't seen my other posts, feel free to enjoy this shit show on its own merits, but you're missing out. The need to know is, after 2 failed marriages and a family death, I was left with no escape from my mother Nikki and her creepy boyfriend Richard. At least, not a responsible escape. It seemed like my mom was finally putting in an effort to parent me, now that there was another person around. I wasn't allowed to run halfway across town doing God knows what anymore. And I mean it all. I was stuck where we'd moved into with Richard. A lot of times I was helping him and Nikki clean those houses college kids rent out. Disgusting, yet cool work. I've always liked exploring empty places, but never got paid for any of it. That was after school, of course. Really, I was running halfway across town to my boyfriend's house. I moved after this story, which messed up my sophomore credits anyways, so I'm not entirely sure how much of the school year I skipped, but I was gone often enough that my friends commented when I finally showed. As a student, I got a free city bus pass. Since my BF got his school credits online, he was always home. You can put 2 and 2 together. I don't know if the school tried to contact Nikki any other way than the automated, late or absent messages, but I never heard about it. Aside from the general lockdown, she was the same as always. She'd show me some conspiracy crap and be super proud I wouldn't be a mindless sheep. She'd include myself and Richard's kids in the New Year's festivities until his son was hitting on me and puking in the toilet. She'd be pissed that I made myself dinner because her and Richard had been out all night. I even saved them some breaded pork chops and mashed potatoes. Definitely a chip on my shoulder over that one. She always had that effect on me. You can either go to bed, or go outside would turn into her trying to drag me back inside, and getting her off of me would result in a smashed front window. Really unhinged stuff. I also dislike how she used cigarettes against me once she found out I smoked, Note for later. She actually told me to ask her when I wanted one. Then we were arguing once, and I told her I could use a smoke. She smirked, and told me I could have one after doing the dishes. The piss poor timing didn't help my mood, but my literal bro slipped me a cigarette while I was fuming. I can't remember when he, his wife, and kid S? moved in with us, but before you start picturing Full House, Richard's kids were only over for visitation. They were still around a decent bit. Enough for me to pick up on the fact that his son had a crush on me. We actually had a decent conversation once where I made it clear I wasn't interested, and he accepted that. Yay, healthy communication. Richard forbade me from speaking to his kids after that. Maybe it pissed him off that neither of them could get me? He hadn't bothered me much since I literally ran from him, So, about the cigarette thing. I honestly don't know how Nikki figured it out. Maybe she finally noticed the multiple open packs she left around going missing. I do remember how she confronted me about it though. Late at night, with my hand inside her purse. I've told you before, I was not a good kid. Ironically, I wasn't even stealing cigarettes. I had just lost my bus pass and wanted to visit my boyfriend. I must have gotten it replaced at some point, since I remember him seeing the bruises from the literal paddling Nikki gave me. She didn't take kindly to my petty effort of showing no pain, so I got a few more whacks than she originally said I would. I also lost my bedroom door privileges, and the kitchen door was padlocked. Don't ask me. My best guess is that in Nikki's holier-than-thou racist philosophies had something against thievery, considering how much she mentioned it in that context. Things did get pretty serious around this time period. I got real good at stealing from convenience stores, and Richard even got annoyed when I once licked my dinner plate after being refused seconds. He also didn't appreciate the broken window incident. Maybe I drove him off, because he ended up getting another place to stay most of the time. That also got Nikki out of the house a lot, so there was some peace again. It was on that kind of day, while my bro and I were playing Xbox, that his wife walked in and told us that Nikki was going to marry Richard. I was a pretty dramatic kid, and immediately picked up my phone to call my dad to come and get me. We had been estranged after my mom convinced me to deny him visitation, but I had started talking with him again. While he was on his way, my BF came over and helped my brother and I pack some things. I was just looking for an excuse to bail at that point, so everything moved pretty quickly. My brother and I joked about how long it'd take Nikki to notice I was gone. A week later, she showed up with the police to the school Dad had enrolled me in, pointing out the earlier promises of juvie if I ran away again, and that it would be preferable to living in a house with her did nothing, of course. They still couldn't be bothered to deal with our family drama, but CPS could. Imagine my surprise when my boyfriend gets a call that people are looking for me at school, and he could get in trouble if I'm there with him. My first day back at that school, and I was caught ditching. I got back there quick to find my very displeased caseworker, CW, who wanted to know where I had been. After years of seeing my parents weaponizing CPS against each other, it hadn't occurred to me to contact them. I was completely honest, of course. What possible repercussions could I face? In the eyes of the law, Nikki was supposed to be responsible for me. Not that she needed my help to slander her parenting skills. It only took another week to be out of that house for good. The lock was obviously removed from the kitchen now, but that didn't matter much once we ran out of food. You see, Nikki was still at Richard's the majority of the time. My brother's car had broken down, so the only way to the store was on foot. Not like it was my bro's job to feed me. We couldn't get a hold of her, and so we called my CW. 20 minutes, give or take, and Nikki storms into the house yelling about I don't remember what. She was mad at my brother, angrily packing her things to stay with Richard. Before leaving again, she shoved her grandson over when he got in her way, which is when I think bro decided to leave with me. We both packed after getting the go-ahead from CW. My dad even went by the police station to confirm he was taking me. I'd like to say I had no contact with Nikki after that, but I did attempt to stay with her a few more times. There was that time she opened all the windows and doors of our apartment to heat the outside when I tried to get away from her and cool down. Or when, I also have this story on my profile, she tried to get my previous BF, now husband arrested/killed by telling the police he was going to shoot up a diner. That one was the straw for me, despite her holding an inheritance over my head and arguing that she deserves a relationship with me. Oh, and that my son is missing out on a relationship with her. Apologies for the warped timeline on this one. As crazy as it sounds now, this was my normal for a long time. It really just blends together, especially after so long. I'm glad to say that I was more level-headed at Dad's. I had my moments, but I was actually good in school when I wanted to be. Not sure how to end this saga. If you read all the installments. Congrats. You know me a bit better now, and I'd be interested to hear some of your crazy life experiences. I get bored, being all normal and well adjusted now. Lols. Really though, I'm doing good. Hope you can say the same.